Well, joining me now is my friend and California Congressman Ted Lieu, a Democratic member of the House Judiciary and Foreign Affairs Committees. Welcome, Congressman, and Happy New Year to you. So we're going to start this chat with the January 6th committee's investigation. The chair, as well as the vice chair, today both addressing the questions of whether there should be criminal referrals, in particular for Donald Trump. Let's take a listen to that.
We are not looking for it, but if we find it, we'll absolutely make the referral.
There are a number of, as the chairman said, potential criminal statutes at issue here, but I think that there's absolutely no question that it was a dereliction of duty. And I think one of the things the committee needs to look at as we're looking at a legislative purpose is whether we need enhanced penalties for that kind of dereliction of duty.
Some experts have been warning that a criminal referral could be counterproductive to the investigation. Is there an argument for not pursuing criminal charges?
Thank you, Alex, for your question. First of all, Happy New Year to you and to your viewers. With regard to your question, no one is above the law, including the President of the United States. As an impeachment manager, it was clear to me that January 6th was an attack on our nation's capital by supporters of the former president to keep him in power. They didn't show up on January 6th to protest tax rates. They were there to stop the certification of the election. And there are numerous federal statutes that criminalize interfering with the election, as well as inciting insurrection. The President of the United States at that time also engaged in a massive dereliction of duty. And based on Liz Cheney's testimony and what she said, I believe the President of the United States wanted his supporters to succeed that day because it would keep him in power.
Yeah, that new Washington Post UMD poll shows that 1 in 3 Americans think violent action against the government is sometimes justified. So when you break it down by party, 23% of Democrats, 41% of independents, 40% of Republicans, they think it's justified to take violent action against the government, I guess, under certain circumstances. But what's your reaction to that?
I think that is horrendous because the only reason we're a democracy is that we don't settle disputes with violence. We settle political disputes at the ballot box. We settle it through votes. And if people want to settle it through violence, then we're not going to have a democracy anymore.
We prepare to mark 1 year now since the deadly Capitol insurrection. And doing so, I want to play for you an exchange from MSNBC a bit earlier today on how our democracy is at stake. Take a listen to this.
I am fearful that if we don't get to the bottom of it, if we don't get to the truth, we are at risk for having this happen again. And my greatest fear is for the future. Sadly, I am worried for my children and my grandchildren.
I'm trying to hold it together right now. Because this conversation...
I think that's all of us. All of America is trying to hold it together.
And Congresswoman Dean, you have been a voice of clarity through all of this. I hope that the fear that you express and that I share ends up being unwarranted. What makes me so upset is I don't think it is.
You know, I echo Jonathan's sentiments there about Congresswoman Dean, and they extend to you as well, sir. I'm curious how you are reflecting on that terrifying day and your concerns for our future.
I think people should understand that January 6th was not a one-day event. There were months of buildup leading up to January 6th with the former president and his supporters saying the big lie, that somehow the election was stolen. And that big lie is being perpetrated even now by members of the Republican Party and Republican leadership. If we want to reduce the risk of further political violence, all Republican leadership needs to do is simply say one truthful sentence, that the election was not stolen. It is that big lie that is animating the violence and the risk of future political violence.
Taking a look outside the country, there appears to be a strengthening of ties between Russia and China. Moscow now winning Chinese support for its demand of new security guarantees from the U.S. How does this complicate matters, big picture? I mean, how much of a threat is this partnership to the U.S.?
Russia and China are clearly countries that have the capability to do a lot of bad things around the world. And the United States has to push back on them when they try to do that, whether it's in Ukraine or in other places. And I commend the Biden administration and President Biden for standing firm against Vladimir Putin with his troop buildup along the Ukrainian border. Russia must not attack Ukraine, an independent country, and Russia is going to suffer severe consequences if that were to happen.
There's growing pressure for Congress to take action on voting rights, especially with the critical midterm in November. Is there a path in your mind getting meaningful legislation on the president's desk? And if so, how?
There absolutely is a path. We've passed in the House of Representatives several bills to the U.S. Senate on voting rights. There's now the Freedom to Vote Act that every Democratic senator supports. We simply need an exception to the filibuster to pass the Freedom to Vote Act. And we know there's already like 37,000 exceptions to filibuster. If you just look at the number of exceptions that Democratic U.S. senators have already voted for in terms of exceptions to filibuster, there's no reason they can't have a voting rights exception, because voting rights are fundamental to our democracy.
Let me rewind the hands of time right now back to July of 2020. That is when you and your Democratic colleague, Hakeem Jeffries, co-authored a letter to DOJ Inspector General Michael Horowitz requesting an investigation into the DOJ's imprisonment of Michael Cohen after he expressed a desire to exercise his First Amendment rights to publish a book. I'm curious, Congressman, whatever came of this, and should or could Michael Horowitz, or even the head of the DOJ at that point, Attorney General Bill Barr, could they still be held accountable? Should they be?
It is possible. The Department of Justice is one of those agencies that doesn't often tell you if they're conducting an investigation, and you really won't know what's happening until something happens. We will, however, follow up on our letter. It is a new administration, a new Department of Justice, and hopefully they can look at this situation with fresh eyes, because it's very alarming. You had the former Department of Justice essentially put someone in prison for free speech, and that should never happen in the United States of America.
That being my forward to seeing you again, and for all of